as this is a channel on vinyl records, I haven't really gone over some of the other things that I like to do in my life, and one of those specifically is reading books. So stay tuned, and I'm going to show you some of my book collection that I have here at home. See you on the flip side. Hello everyone, I'm Daryl, the Northern Vinyl Guy, and I'm here with another video. Now, today's video is a little bit different than the ones that I would normally choose to do, which are all about my vinyl record collection. In today's video, I am going to show you some of my book collection and some of the topics that I like to read about and things like that. Of course, as this is a music channel, I will start this off with my books related to music. And then if you want to continue watching about some of the other topics I like to read about, well, then this one might be for you. So without further ado, if you are new to my channel, please leave me a thumb up, leave some comments down in the comment section below, and definitely subscribe to my channel. If you're a returning viewer, then I appreciate the support, and I hope that you enjoy this video, as it's going to be a bit of a different video than what I normally do. All right, so basically, I have probably 5 or 6 categories, I guess, of books or collections of books that I have in my house that I like to read. I don't get to reading too often, but when I do, these are some of the topics that I enjoy reading about. So firstly, I enjoy reading about music. That is, goes without saying, it's my passion. It's one of my main interests that I have. Other topics that I like to read about include sports. As I'm a history teacher, I definitely have some history books. I am into crime, true crime, things like that. I am a cooking teacher, so I definitely have a cookbook collection, and then I also enjoy playing video games and board games, so I definitely have some books regarding that. So, with that in mind, here we go. I'd like to just show you some of the books. I mean, I've got a couple hundred books in my house. Some of them are my wife's, some of them are my own. And so I'm going to start with my music books. So the first few that I'm going to show you are definitely either autobiographies or biographies. I definitely am into Maynard James Keenan and the band Tool, one of my favorite bands of all time. And this is the perfect union of contrary things. My wife purchased this, got me this for Christmas a few years ago. And of course, this is a biography. I think it's a biography or a part autobiography of Maynard James Keenan and his life, and how the band Tool kind of came to be. And so if you are into Tool and Maynard and all that kind of stuff, and you have not yet read this one, this is a great read. Perfect union of contrary things. Now, my most recent purchase that I have, there's a couple of them here in this pile, but when it comes to biographies and autobiographies, I have not yet read this one, but I did pick up the Gordon Lightfoot biography here. It is a national bestseller. Got it at Indigo recently, Cole's bookstore. And so I can't wait to dig into this, but definitely, once again, if you are into Gordon Lightfoot, this was recommended to me. So Lightfoot, that's another book that I want to read, have not yet got there. All right, now speaking of, I guess, biographies, this isn't a biography in the true sense when it comes to music, but it's kind of a history of MTV. My brother sent me this. He was part of a book club a few years back. I Want My MTV. And it basically is the whole history of MTV, how it came to be, the DJs and stories of the bands and the music videos that came across or that came about. It's a few years old, this book, but if you have not yet checked this one out, definitely give this one a shot. It's a great read. Unfortunately, my copy has some pages in it. When it gets to the, I think it's Guns N' Roses section, if I remember right. Anyway, they're blank. There's like 3 pages or 4 pages that are missing. But it is what it is. All right, I Want My MTV. It is a great read. All right. Next are books that kind of go over, I wouldn't call them lists, but songs and bands that you should listen to and periods of time related to that. So this one here, 60 songs that explain the 90s. In fact, this one has, what's really funny is it says there's way more than that actually up here, and that is true. So it goes over different time periods and different themes related to music from the 1990s. If that is for you, then definitely check that one out. Highly recommend. All right, next, I just got this one along with the Gordon Lightfoot book. This is A Century of Song, 1923 all the way to, I think it's 2023 is the last year. Basically, music that changed everything. And so what this does is it goes over one song per year that would be deemed not necessarily the most popular or the most famous song, but a song that was listed per year that had an impact on the music industry as a whole. And so, you've got things like Madonna in here. You've got things like Billie Holiday in here. You've got the crooners in here. You've got rock and roll in here. So songs from specific years that dealt with a rock and roll track that was really famous one year and impacted the industry. This one here comes with all kinds of pictures and musicians that are in it. So honorable mentions, for example, this particular one here, sorry, I'll show you. This one's got a lot of honorable mentions, but this is 1990 through 1999, and the way that it starts is, like this one here, 1990, it's got MC Hammer, so it has a picture of MC Hammer, it's got the year of the song, and it's got an explanation as to why the book writer has chosen those. So this one here is by Noah Lefebvre. Definitely check that one out if you haven't. It's a great read. I've been enjoying it thoroughly. All right, and then I couldn't talk about my book collection without talking about things like my Billboard's Hottest 100 Hits. I love that one. I've gone through this one. In fact, I have written quizzes on a website called funtrivia.com related to music and the industry. If you haven't checked that one out, go there. Definitely some great quizzes, all written by members of, not the VC, but in general, lots of different topics there. So if you're into quizzes, check out that as well, funtrivia.com. But Billboard, hottest 100 hits type thing. And then last but not least, I've always been fascinated by things like death metal and black metal and dark metal. I do have a book called Black Metal here, and it kind of goes over a history of dark metal and black metal bands. It's got some stuff in there, pictures of the bands, write-ups of the bands, covers of some of the records and their albums. So wonderful. This one here is Beyond the Darkness by Black Dog Publishing. So if you haven't checked that out, definitely do so. All right, here we go. I don't want to make this video too long, but I think it's going to be a little bit longer. This is the part of the video where if you are only interested in music, then you can switch over now if you want. I'm not going to be offended. However, if you're interested in other books that I have in my collection based on those categories that I gave, now is the time to continue. So, starting with the sports category, I am a big fan of the Toronto Maple Leafs. This one here, of course, Bill Barocco, famous goal scorer, 1951 Stanley Cup playoffs. Also in a Tragically Hip song. But this is the complete oral history by Eric Zweig. I'm not sure how to say it. So it goes over the history of the Toronto Maple Leafs from 1917 on, and some stories related to the team. Now, I'm not a huge football fan, like NFL football fan or anything like that. However, this book here caught my attention because in my next category, I'm going to be talking about crime books and stuff like that. But basically, sports worst offenders. So but specifically football's worst offenders. So NFL football players that have had legal issues and have gone to prison for various reasons. So there you can see one of the players on the front, and of course O.J. Simpson on the back there, right? So some stories, some players that are in here include O.J. Simpson, Warren Moon, Michael Irvin, Aaron Hernandez. That's who I was trying to remember. Aaron Hernandez on the front cover, of course, convicted of murder and things like that. But there are at least 30 or 40 NFL players that are listed here. Michael Vick, Pac-Man Jones, you name it. Their lifestyles, definitely, they've had some issues, but some of the best football players, of course, in history are in that book. All right, now, one of my favorite sports, in fact, my favorite sport of all time. I like watching it. I like playing it. I take personal days during the World Cup of soccer, and so it wouldn't be right for me not to have a World Cup or football book. And so this is some incredible stories, World Cup stories, dating all the way back to 1930, and it kind of goes over it in chronological order. So this one here is by Luciano Wernicke, Wildest Tales and Most Dramatic Moments from Uruguay 1930 to Qatar 2022, so the most recent World Cup. All right, I'm also a fan of the Olympics, but in the case of the Olympics, I'm more about the facts. So who was the fastest runner? Different things about different events, and this is the Olympic Book of Lists. Things like funniest Olympians, biggest upsets, you name it, it's all in this book. And so this one here is by David Wolochinsky and Jamie Lookey. So if you haven't read into that one, do so. And last but not least in the sports, I am all about the Stanley Cup. And of course, this is the complete history of the Stanley Cup, excluding last year's Stanley Cup, but this goes over all the different stories, dating all the way back to like the 1800s and going all the way. This one, the most recent one in here is what year? So this one is up to 2018. All right, but got some cool stuff, cool facts, cool stats all in there. All right, I noted that I am into crime, and so I like forensics. So this is by Val McDermott. It is specifically about forensics, what bugs, burns, prints, DNA. It's a whole history of crime and different scenarios and how things came to be, blood splatter and all that good stuff is in this book. So I am into real crime, things like Bad Medicine. This one here, Robert Youngson and Ian Schott, Bad Medicine. Stories of doctors and physicians and weird medicine in which crime has taken place. That includes weird surgery, medical disasters, you name it. It's all in this book. A great read. If you haven't checked it out, do so. Okay, so once again, if you want to look at the back of this, the strange and very true history of quacks, weird surgery, and medical disasters. All right, I also like things like weird crimes, so bizarre crimes, strange crimes that have happened. This one here is not necessarily about, serial killers or anything like that, but it is incredible and bizarre true crime stories that include Christian Bala, the Polish writer who killed a rival, then used the murder as a plot for his own novel. John Lee, the man they could not hang, who survived 3 attempts and executed him in Exeter Prison. Or Robert Rattlesnake James, Californian barber who used 2 snakes in a box to try to kill his wife. True crime stories, but very strange. If you have not read this one or checked it out, it is The Mammoth Book by Robin Odell. All right, as I am from the Great White North, Canada, couldn't go without some cold north killers. This one even includes one of Canada's most famous crimes, Robert Pickton, who murdered women and then fed them to his pigs on his farm. So, cold north killers, all kinds of stories about true north crime by Lee Meller. So if you're into true crime, there you go. I'm always, obviously, I've talked about the serial killer things. I do have serial killer books, serial killer files. No, I am not a serial killer, and definitely not going to start that. But yeah, no, this is kind of an encyclopedia of famous ones and their stories. Right here, Harold Schechter, Serial Killer Files. And one last crime book that fascinates me. Now, this kind of fits into my next subject, which is going to be history. But I am into things like the mafia and learning about the mafia and the history behind them. This one here is the Mafia Files, Case Studies of the World's Most Evil Mobsters by Al Cimino. It also includes even stories, of course, of Al Capone, one of the most famous gangsters of all time. A little bit gruesome there, but yeah, neat stuff there. The Mafia Files. All right, so my next segue is into history. So we talked about the Mafia Files. Well, why don't we talk about the origins of places and words and things of that nature. This is more of a list book, but this is the Book of Origins by Trevor Homer. So if you are into learning about things like discover the amazing origins of the clothes we wear, the languages we speak, these include the origins of things like coffee, Mark Twain email, tobacco, Viagra, Braille, and more, all in this book. Fascinated by that. I do teach history, so that is definitely a great book for me. Now, this next one is a little bit beat up, and I'm going to assume that it might be a little bit difficult to find, by Alan Wynne Sneath. But this is kind of unique. It's called Brewed in Canada, and it's basically about the history of breweries dating all the way back to the Molson breweries and the Labatt breweries back in the 1700s in Canada. So kind of if you're into this kind of thing, this is a great, chronological history of breweries in Canada and how beer was formed. It might be a little dry and boring to some, but for me, I thought it was a pretty cool read. So, Brewed in Canada, the untold story of Canada's 350-year-old brewing industry. I like World War II. I like the World Wars and things like that. This one here, I just like stories of mystery and rare things that are going on. And these are some unsolved mysteries surrounding World War II, things that have never been 100% solved, including from Nazi ghost trains and the Tokyo Rose story. World War II Unsolved History by Michael Fitzgerald. I had a friend purchase this one. I thought that the title of this is absolutely hilarious. On this day in history, shit went down. And basically it goes, this book here, starts on January 1st. So it goes over one historical event that happens on each day of the year in history. So January 1st, it is looking at the American Revolution and the Pennsylvania Line Mutiny and how different colonels did whatnot. And then, of course, it talks about different years throughout history. So, April 20th, 1902, it talks about Marie Curie and things like that with radiation. Different stories at different points in time. Very neat stuff. All right, so if this is for you, then definitely check out the James Fell. On this day in history, shit went down. And then, as I mentioned, I definitely like real world history, but I really like stuff about disasters and errors that have happened in history. And in fact, I even watch stuff like that on the Disney Channel. They definitely have some videos about that or shows about that. So disasters and mistakes. This one is by Tim Cook, an atlas of history's greatest disasters, the 50 most significant moments explored in words and maps. And if you are into this kind of thing, it's got things like maps and the Spanish Armadas in here, stories about that. Commercial disasters, Alexander Graham Bell, it talks about the Great Lakes. Let's see what else is in here. Some of the earlier ones, the destruction of Pompeii. All are in this book. So, yeah, once again, Tim Cook, Atlas of History of Disasters and Mistakes. Next up, next category, I've got 2 more to go. If you are still with me, I definitely appreciate you. I just gotta grab my books here. But many of you know that I'm into cooking, and so I've got some cookbooks here, some cookbooks that I thought were interesting that I have in my collection. One thing that I love to do is cook with beer, and so I do have this one here, Cooking with Beer, which is shaped like a beer can. Who is this one by? Who is the author of this? It is not saying. Just talk. This is from the For Premium Quality Food Prepared with Beer. Anyway, this is just recipes and cooking with beer. So kielbasa and kraut heroes, brats and beer. We've got bacon and cheese rarebit, aled pork and sauerkraut. There you go. So a lot of these are really good. There's one in here with a hamburger, but the cheese sauce one is fantastic. So if you're looking for a good cooking with beer book, it's a small one, but check that one out. All right, we've got Rachel Ray's top 30 minutes or top 30 30-minute meals. This one is for working with kids. So kid food, Rachel Ray. We've got things like chicken and star soup. We have patty melts. We've got creamy basil and tomato soup, right? We've got things like that in there. Good pictures. Alaska burgers. So yeah, no, just if you're into cooking with your kids or you want some simple meals to make, Rachel Ray's top 30 recipes in 30 minutes or less. This one here always makes me laugh, by Angela Marillis. This one is called Balls. And basically the whole book is just cooking and making things like meatballs and stuff. But it is fantastic. What are we looking at here? We've got fish ball chowder. There we go. Fish ball chowder if you're into that kind of thing. We have Brussels sprouts with bacon. We have Vietnamese meatball sandwiches. Right, so yeah, this is great. Spinach salad with green apples, feta, and balsamic dressing. There we go. Just some play on words and hummus, chickpea style stuff. Peas, those would be considered balls. There you go. Balls. I thought that was quite crafty. I like to barbecue. I like to work with fire. So this Project Fire book by Stephen Reichlin has got some good barbecuing recipes on there. Check this one out. This is like 200 pages or so. Yeah, almost 250 or more pages. Lamb. We've got lemongrass pork bites. Let's see here. Pork and pork roasts with a Russian dressing, filet mignon. So if you are into barbecuing, I definitely highly recommend this cookbook from the author of the Barbecue Bible. He's also got Project Fire. And last but not least with the cooking, and then I'll get to my final category, we've got, if you're into Guy Fieri, famous Food Network channel, star and host of different things. This is his Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, or more Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. But it goes some of the location that he's traveled to throughout the United States, and it's got some recipes from those locations. So he went to Kelly O's Diner, and their recipe for haluski, and the recipe for Guy Fieri's Holy Haluski recipe. So a couple of different ones there. And then, on the coming pages, he traveled to Semitas Puebla in Chicago. And so what did he do with Semitas Puebla restaurant? Well, he has a Semitas Puebla steak tacos recipe from that diner. So yeah, like hundreds of recipes that are in this book. This is the, like I said, this is the more. I do not have the first published book in that category. So if you're into that, cooking, that is that. And I'm going to close out this video. I do apologize that this is going to probably be around a 27 or 28 minute video, but if you stuck along this long, finish it out. I am definitely into board games and video games, and so Gabe Barrett, I kickstarted this project. I do have this one plus the how to run a Kickstarter, but this is board game advice from the best board game designers in the world and how to design your own board games. So I like this one. I also have a more scholarly one. I'm not going to show it here, but there's one you can buy on the Board Game Geek channel. Webpage, sorry. And yeah, if you want to learn how to make board games, then check this one out by Gabe Barrett. This one here, I just got 101 board games to check out before you die. Kind of fits into that music chronological category of games and music and stuff like that. So this one here isn't going to have your Monopoly and stuff like that. It is going to have games that you probably haven't heard of for the most part, unless you're a gamer, but if you would like to try them. So Hues and Cues, Exploding Kittens, for example. It has games that need cooperation, so things like The Captain is Dead and Pandemic. And then other types of games, such as Memoir 44, if you're into, war games and things like that. But 101 board games that you need to check before you die. And this one is by Jared Carmichael, a relatively newer book. Now, if you are into video games, then these last two books are going to be for you. So this one here, I just got Video Game of the Year by Jordan Miner and forwarded by Dan Reichert. But this is basically what they're deeming to be the most influential game of the year dating back to 1977. And what do you know? 1977, the most influential game would be Pong, according to this book. And, you're going to see things in here like, I believe Pac-Man might be in here somewhere. Donkey Kong is in here, 1981. So very cool, nicely illustrated. Really like this. I'm going to have to read a little bit more into it. 1991, of course, you got your Sonics and things like that. Mario Brothers is in here. So there we go. Video Game of the Year, Jordan Miner. And then the last book that I have is the unofficial guide to Super Mario Brothers, the big book of Super Mario. And it kind of goes over everything dating back to when, Super Mario became a thing in the 1980s. You've got your Super Mario Brothers and good pictures in it, good stories. Mario of the 2000s, if you're into Mario, and etc., etc. So it's kind of a history, but it also kind of gives some hints and strategy tips of the games dating back all the way, like I said, to the early 80s. So Super Mario, here we go. And doesn't really state who the author is on this one. This is kind of a collection of things, but if you're into this, check it out, Super Mario Brothers. Once again, I am at the 28-minute mark here. I do apologize for the lengthy video, but if you stuck around for this long, then I'm glad that you did. Let me know your thoughts. What are some categories of books that you are interested in, and some themes of books? Do you have any of the ones that I have here in my collection? Let me know. Once again, if you are new to my channel and you've stuck this far, leave me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, leave some comments down below, and if you are a returning viewer, I do appreciate you got this far in the video. And until next time, take care, everyone, and we will see you for a music video on the next one. Have a good one.